You know the rhyme divorced beheaded died, divorced beheaded survived. It sounds like a harmless classroom trick to memorize history. But behind that cheerful little phrase is a gallery of shattered lives. 6 women who stepped into a royal marriage expecting security and found themselves trapped in a nightmare of humiliation, betrayal, and fear. Today we are pulling back the gilded curtains of Tudor England to reveal the psychological torture that haunted every one of Henry VIII's wives. This is not the romanticized court of television dramas. This is a human horror story set inside a palace. Let's begin with Catherine of Aragon, the Spanish princess who married Henry out of duty and loyalty. She endured 7 pregnancies, burying 5 infants and clinging to hope for a male heir. When she finally gave him a healthy daughter, Mary, Henry dismissed her sacrifices as failure. Instead of gratitude, he flaunted his affair with a much younger Boleyn and began dismantling Catherine's life. He exiled her to cold, drafty castles and banned her from seeing her daughter. Catherine wrote heartfelt letters begging Henry for compassion, but accounts say many were left unopened on his desk. Imagine being the Queen of England and having your husband treat your pleas for kindness like garbage mail. She died abandoned, still calling herself his true wife. And Boleyn was clever, ambitious, and for a time the center of Henry's obsession. She had captivated him for years, refusing to become just another mistress, insisting on marriage. But once she failed to give him a son, her crown turned into a trap. Henry unleashed a theater of cruelty to erase her. He accused her of adultery and even incest with her own brother. He forced her musician to confess under torture. Then, before Anne's own execution, he had her watch as 5 innocent men including her brother were killed for allegedly sleeping with her. The public humiliation was the real weapon. She spent her last days isolated in the tower, waiting for a French swordsman to end her life while the man who had once sworn eternal love prepared to marry someone else. Jane Seymour, wife number 3, is often called the lucky one because she gave Henry the male heir he craved. But Jane's story is not one of comfort. She lived in constant fear that any misstep could cost her everything. She watched what had happened to Catherine and Anne. Producing a son was her only shield. After days of brutal labor, she finally delivered Prince Edward, earning Henry's praise for a fleeting moment. Then she died of infection only days later. While her body was still lying in state, Henry was already considering which woman to marry next. Jane's supposed luck was to be briefly adored and then discarded by death and by a king who quickly moved on. Anne of Cleves came next, a political match arranged without love. Henry met her in person only after agreeing to marry her based on a flattering portrait. When he saw her, he publicly mocked her as unattractive, calling her the Flanders mare. But by then the marriage contract was sealed. And this was not just embarrassment, it was a fight for survival. The memory of Anne Boleyn's fate hovered over her. Rather than challenge Henry's insult, she acted grateful when he suggested an annulment. She declared the marriage had never been consummated and called Henry her beloved brother. Her performance saved her life. She remained at court as a kind of royal sister, tolerated but humiliated, while Henry chased his next bride. It was one of the cleverest acts of self-preservation in royal history. Catherine Howard was barely a teenager when she was thrown into Henry's bed. She was vivacious, affectionate, and disastrously young for the political sharks circling the throne. When whispers surfaced about flirtations from her past, Henry's response was cruel and terrifying. He created a new treason law requiring any future queen to reveal every previous romantic encounter, retroactively criminalizing Catherine's past. She was interrogated, isolated, and tormented by the knowledge of what awaited her. Accounts say she was forced to see the execution block being prepared. She is said to have practiced laying her head on it so she could face death with dignity. Catherine Howard was executed around the age of 17, another teenager destroyed by a king twice her age and 10 times her cruelty. Finally, Catherine Parr, often remembered as the survivor. But she survived not by Henry's mercy, but by outsmarting him. She was intelligent and interested in religious reform, which put her in danger among conservative factions. Henry himself signed an arrest warrant for heresy. When she learned of the plot against her, she spent a sleepless night rehearsing how to save her life. The next day she approached Henry not with defiance but with calculated flattery, pretending that she had only debated theology to distract him from his pain and to learn from his wisdom. Henry, flattered in vain, cancelled the warrant. Catherine Parr lived to see Henry die first, but she had lived every day of her marriage like a chess game, always one wrong move from the axe. 6 women. 6 nightmares. They entered royal marriages hoping for security or at least survival. Instead, they found themselves at the mercy of a man whose ego, paranoia, and hunger for control crushed everyone around him. Henry was not just a king collecting wives. He was a force that turned marriage into a psychological battlefield. Behind the portraits and pageantry were women enduring humiliation, isolation, and fear so deep that even their final moments were rehearsed performances to appease a tyrant's vanity. So the next time you hear that catchy rhyme divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived, remember the human cost hidden behind its sing-song simplicity. These were not fairy tale queens. They were daughters, sisters, and mothers navigating a court where love was a weapon and loyalty meant nothing. Their stories are not neat footnotes. They are tragedies that still echo through history, reminding us that power unchecked can twist even a marriage vow into a nightmare. And if you thought Henry's 6 wives were the end of the Tudor horror story, think again. His paranoia, gluttony, and cruelty rippled through his children's reigns and through generations of European politics. There are far more royal secrets waiting to be unearthed. So stay curious, because the next chapter of hidden history is even darker than you expect. You know the rhyme divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. It sounds like a harmless classroom trick to memorize history. But behind that cheerful little phrase is a gallery of shattered lives. 6 women who stepped into a royal marriage expecting security and found themselves trapped in a nightmare of humiliation, betrayal, and fear. Today we are pulling back the gilded curtains of Tudor England to reveal the psychological torture that haunted every one of Henry VIII's wives. This is not the romanticized court of television dramas. This is a human horror story set inside a palace.